You don't lift weights with your brain, but you do exercise your brain. So, the types of things that you can do that do that. I think just having hobbies is a huge one. I can't speak for other people. I do several puzzles every single morning just to get the juices flowing in my brain, because I find that to be intellectually stimulating. And then the other one, as far as mental health, if you stopped reading, you're going downhill. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So get out a fiction book, read it. Get out some nonfiction if that's what you're into. Study history or whatever you want to do, but you need to continue reading.
Keep learning, keep educating.
Keep educating
yourself.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And that's stretching the mind. That's exercising your brain.
I can tell you for a fact the happiness factor does not change any one way, shape, or form, depending upon whatever that term enough, whatever that number is. Once you get above that number, your happiness doesn't change.
Right.
Your lifestyle does not change. As long as your
tax situation might.
Yeah, tax situation, the estate plan, right? All the things that we do, right? But from a happiness perspective,
no impact.
There's no impact. There's really no impact. Thanks for joining us again for another edition of the Retirement Planning Happy Hour. Eric Douglas, Chris Vaughn, Family Wealth Planning Partners, where we talk all about investments, finances, retirements, and retirement planning over a nice pour of bourbon. And so this week's topic, before we go to the bourbon, is a little bit interesting. So you found a study that was done out of Australia.
Out of Australia, right.
Yeah, it was basically a retirement happiness index. And so we are going to note a couple of the differences that we think between maybe Americans and Australians, but we also want to note some of the similarities between, what we think a lot of the findings that came as a result of this study that was done. Basically, what this study was trying to do was basically attach a score, a happiness score, if you will, yes. to retirement, right? Kind of like a happiness index or bliss index. I've seen all kinds of different things like that. But that's what they were trying to do, was basically assign a score, a happiness score to retirees in Australia specifically. And some of the findings we both found particularly interesting. Right. Some we definitely agree with, and some that we have definitely noted with a lot of our clients, and some that definitely maybe a little bit divergent from what we think Americans might feel. So we wanted to kind of go through this study, some of the findings a little bit. But before we do that, introduce what you got here for us.
So this is we're actually going back and taking another look at something. Several months back, we did the Mary Dowling, and I can't remember what it was called, but it was the one that checked all the boxes. It was the toasted, foolproof.
This double oak too.
Double oak did everything, and we kind of stomped on it a little bit because we said it was trying to do too much. Mm-hmm. But we also said, you know what? They had a couple other expressions that we wanted to maybe look at. One of them was finished in tequila barrels. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I haven't tried it, but I'm probably not going to buy it. I would taste it if somebody else did. But then they've got one that's made with winter wheat, which is what we have here today. This is their winter wheat version. It is.
You'll have to explain to me what a winter wheat is.
So winter wheat, and I learned this because of being around a lot of women in my family who are really into baking. I mean, seriously into baking. And winter wheat is just harvested very late in the year. Okay. And it has a softer structure to it or something like that. It's a little over my head, but I know that it's usually very desirable. So this is a wheated bourbon. It is 91 proof. So this is a little bit light. Should be fairly easy, soft on the palate. So I have no idea what kind of taste we're doing. I've never tried this anywhere until when I take a drink here in just a minute.
Aged in toasted barrels, it looks like as well.
Oh, I did not see that. Okay, so it is a toasted.
It is a
toasted bourbon. All right.
Good deal.
All right. Well, we'll find out.
We'll review towards the end here. So going to this study, because you were the one that actually found this study. So I'll maybe let you kick it off and see what it was that you found most interesting on this before we kind of go through what they found to be the drivers of happiness. But what were some of your takeaways in reviewing?
Okay, so some of my immediate takeaways. First of all, what I was doing, to be brutally honest, I was looking for good material for this podcast.
Yep.
Which is something we always do. And of course, we're always trying to educate ourselves too. I don't know everything. A mentor to me told me, when you know everything, you need to quit, because there's no challenge in it anymore, or you're way too arrogant to ever be good at it. So we're always trying to learn. And I came across this podcast, and I listened to maybe a half an hour of it out of Australia. And what the woman that was on there talking about was they do a research study, and they do it every single year, called the Retirement Happiness Index. And we've seen these before. It tries to assign a score. There's some value in doing those. It wasn't the score that I found to be very interesting.
Yeah.
It was the drivers of happiness was what caught my attention. And they did assign scores to those on how much of a driver it was, the value of that. So I think the average person out there, I know Joe Average Investment Advisor, it's all about the money and the investments and making the amount of money that you have bigger. We've talked to many people about this. We've had comments on this podcast that are very clearly the purpose of money to these people, or at least that mindset, is to make your money bigger. And we've come out and said, no, the purpose of money is to buy the things or the not necessarily things, but activities, things of that nature.
Build your lifestyle.
Your lifestyle that bring you joy. What makes you happy? So that's kind of what we thought is the purpose. But what I found really interesting here was it listed 6 major drivers of happiness. I don't know. It does not give us any more information on whether there were, another 20 items behind this. It just only lists 6. And this is very small print. As obviously you're thinking the same thing. I'm going to put my glasses on. What I found interesting was not where money fell, but it was the things that fell as more important than money. That's what really got my attention when I started looking into it. And the very top one, and it's a score of 80, I'm assuming on a 100 scale, but that is an assumption. It was activities and hobbies. And we have talked about that ad nauseum, about how important it is. And the phrase that you like to use, Eric, is you don't retire from something, you retire to something. And I think that played right into that mindset of, if you don't have things that you like to do, that you can do a lot more often in retirement, you need to find some of those. And I talk about how my dad at one point in time, he was really into woodworking and he enjoyed that kind of stuff. I've got quite a few hobbies. Obviously, bourbon is one of them. That is not a safe hobby to be the only thing that you do when you retire. Your retirement won't last very long.
Make sure you take care of that hobby responsibly.
Exactly.
Right?
You not only need to have hobbies and activities that you like to do, but I would argue, and we've talked about this as well, you need to have, if you're married, hobbies and activities that you enjoy doing together, because your personalities are different. My wife and I are polar opposite, and we like a lot of different things. So you need to have things that you like doing together, but you need to have things that you enjoy doing by yourself.
For sure.
And a couple of reasons. One, you don't want to drive each other crazy, right? I mean, you can only spend so much time together before you start getting on each other's nerves, and that's not good. And the brutal truth is, most likely one of you is going to die before the other one. So you need something that you can continue to enjoy and do after, if you're a surviving spouse. So, the score on this is considerably higher than money. We've talked about, how many clients do you have that the number of activities that they get into is just mind-boggling, right? And those are usually the happiest people when you meet with them.
The ones that are the hardest to schedule reviews for, because they have such a busy schedule. It's amazing how busy an unemployed person can be.
Yep, and you know what? We've talked to people where they're extremely busy because of the sheer volume of doctor's appointments they go to. That's not what we're talking about. But people who volunteer, people who work a very part-time job just because they enjoy it or because of the benefit they get. And I've said, we have a friend that in his 80s still works at a local golf club. Just serves hot dogs and rings people up. Why? Because he gets to play free, and he's still a single handicap golfer. So, hey, good for you. I would like to be a single handicap golfer one game, right? Just one time.
That's a retirement goal in and of itself right there. Yeah. But yeah, so when we're looking at the drivers of happiness, number one to the one you just brought out was activities and hobbies. Having something to do, retiring to something to keep you occupied other than TV and staring at your phone, right?
Right.
Something to get you out of the house, keep you moving. Number two was interesting. Number two was mental health.
I thought that one was interesting too. Yeah.
And so what is not said on here is what do they mean by mental health?
Yes, exactly.
And so there's a couple different ways that you could go with this. Are we talking about mental health in the capacity of like dementia, Alzheimer's, maintaining your mental faculties?
Right.
Or are we referring to it just strictly in the sense of, not being depressed, treating your anxiety, depression, not having, kind of any type of mental, I don't want to say disorders, but just kind of any mental health issues that we think of, when it comes to mental health as it's talked about in today's society, right? So that wasn't totally clear. I'm going to assume it's the second. It's the latter.
I think you're right as well.
Because I would assume that if it was referring to like Alzheimer's and dementia patients, then that's kind of a different thing, right? And that's going to be probably more related to your physical health. But I think a lot of your mental health issues, or say mental health happiness as a driver of happiness in retirement, is probably going to stem from some of these other things.
I was just going to suggest, I've known quite a few people who are still alive in their 80s and early 90s, and I've known more that are no longer with us that up until right before they died were mentally very sharp. I can think of several right off the top of my head that are in their 80s or early 90s now that mentally they're as crisp as they were, when they were at my age or your age. So you have to think, well, what do they do? Well, it goes back to that first one. They have activities and hobbies that they get into in every case that I can think of. They do things that exercise the brain. I think we lose out, in our society, we've really rammed home how important physical health is. And I know we'll talk about that in a minute. But we don't talk about the exercises that you can do. You don't lift weights with your brain, but you do exercise your brain. So, the types of things that you can do that do that. I think just having hobbies is a huge one. I can't speak for other people. I do several puzzles every single morning just to get the juices flowing in my brain because I find that to be intellectually stimulating. And then the other one, as far as mental health, if you stopped reading, you're going downhill. You know what I mean? So get out a fiction book, read it. Get out some nonfiction if that's what you're into. Study history or whatever you want to do, but you need to continue reading.
Keep learning, keep educating.
Keep educating
yes, yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's stretching the mind. That's exercising your brain.
The saying, if you don't use it, you lose it.
That's a great saying in this case. Yeah. So I do think that they might, in some cases, some of the respondents to this survey might have been referring to mental health in the dementia or the Alzheimer's concern. But to your point, I think those are more physical things. We don't know this, but there's a lot of thought that has to do with exercise and diet and things of that nature, which I would say falls obviously into the more physical side. But definitely just stretching your mind, and if you don't use it, you lose it. Find an activity that uses your brain, and don't ever stop doing it. And that you'll be a happier person.
What I think when it relates to mental health on this list, I think mental health is almost a subset of all of the other 5 drivers of happiness. I think your mental health is directly impacted by the other 5 things on this list.
I totally agree with that.
And so it's interesting that it's number 2 because really I think if you're doing the other 5, your mental health will be fine. Your mental health will kind of be taken care of because that's kind of a good segue into number 3, which is having a purpose.
Yeah.
Which is, maybe a little bit of a greater calling than activities and hobbies. Activities and hobbies is, playing pickleball, right?
Sure.
Taking care of the grandkids. But having a purpose, especially in kind of the way that we view the world, right? Having a little bit of a greater purpose. What's your purpose to the world? What's your purpose? What were you put on this earth to do by God, right? Just from a greater perspective, where have you been? Where are you going maybe when this thing is over? But maybe understanding what your purpose in being here is and how can you help fulfill that purpose while you're still around, and especially in retirement when you have more time on your hands to maybe possibly do that. Right. So I'm trying to think of a little bit of a bigger calling than, playing pickleball on the weekends.
Well, I mean, back to the activities thing. Okay, pickleball, that's a physical activity and it's something that's fun to do. So I heard I need to start playing. I just haven't found a place where I can go consistently do it. But I think one of the activities that also plays into your point, these are kind of intertwined, to that having a purpose is maybe this is where we get into volunteering or donating your time towards something. Writing a check to a charity is a great thing to do. Charities have to have money in order to operate. But I can tell you, the charity that I'm on the board of, they do a great job of asking people for money, and we get a lot of incoming things. But what they need the most is they need the volunteers who go out and do the work, right? And that is very, very fulfilling work. So that's one of those that your purpose could be just making the world around you a slightly better place. Maybe it's more grandiose than that. Maybe you want to run for the school board in your town or something like that because you don't like the way it's been done. And I'm retired. I got time, right? Or whatever. What is that purpose? What fulfills you mentally, emotionally, spiritually? That can be that purpose.
Some type of mission, some type of a calling, right? Once again, those that just kind of hang around and watch TV, you're not really fulfilling, the reason why God put you on this earth.
Exactly. I was thinking, at our church, for example, they do lots of what they call short-term mission trips where you go for, it could be a long weekend up into Appalachia. It could be a couple of weeks in a third world country and a little bit of everything in between. But the bulk of the people who do it are at or already in retirement years, right? Because they have the time. And you know what? I've never heard anybody go do one of those activities and come back and go, well, that was a waste. I've just never heard them say that. They always come back very fulfilled with some form of, I have a purpose. I changed somebody's life. So that's definitely something that you can do that it's going to make you a happier person.
And this is anecdotal by all means, but I will say some of the happiest retirees that I do speak with are typically believers and typically speak pretty openly about that for what it's worth, not endorsing or not endorsing anything, right? And don't want to go too terribly down that rabbit hole when it comes to religion, right? Happy to talk about it, but that is just an anecdotal
you're absolutely
side note
right.
that I wanted to make a point on. Social connections is number 4. That's the number 4 driver of happiness. So social connections is relatively self-explanatory, obviously, and it's actually, I say it's number 4, it's actually equal to having a purpose. And one of the things that I think, have a purpose to do is to make connections with other people, to engage with other people. You are not sent here. You are not supposed to be on this earth to be a bump on a log by yourself, right?
We are social creatures.
We are designed to be social creatures, and we all crave to some degree social connections. That's why when you see, widows and widowers, there's a reason why when typically one spouse goes, there's all kinds of stats about this where, if you don't have those other social connections outside of your marriage, the second spouse probably isn't going to be too terribly far behind, right? So maintaining some type of a social life, some type of social connections. I've mentioned this before on the podcast. I'm probably one of the guiltiest people. I'm talking to myself about this, right? Because especially at my age, you get so wrapped up in what your kids are doing and what they're involved in, and kind of my whole social structure is based around kids' activities and their schooling and work, right? And obviously my marriage and all those things, right? So, but that's definitely one of the biggest drivers of happiness in retirement is maintaining other social connections with people so you can still feel kind of a part of something bigger, right? And that probably bleeds somewhere into having a purpose as well.
I would agree. Something that I was thinking about when I read the part about, the social connections. We're very social creatures, but a couple of different people pop into my mind that I know that are elderly. And unfortunately, they're now at that point where the bulk of their friends are no longer with us. They've statistically beaten those odds, and there are just not that many friends left. So what are some other types of social connections that you can have that will that are less likely to pass away at roughly the same time as you. Two people in particular that all of their friends are gone now. But there's a belief, I personally believe in it, that younger people should seek out, especially married couples, should seek out married couples that are at least a generation older than them for friendships. And the reason for that is, how much wisdom can you get from somebody who's 20 years older than you? They've been around that track a few times. And at the same time, that younger couple gives life and vitality to the older couple. So if you're harvesting those kind of friendships as well, so not just family, because family, we all know, moves away. Family's important, but just outside of your family, those networks, those friendships where you get involved with people who are a different age, so that when you get up there, when you're the one who beats the odds and most of your friends are gone, you're still maintaining those good social connections. But you got to be a little proactive on that.
Mm-hmm. Number 5, physical health.
All right, I'm going to let you run with this one, because this is really a big part of what you believe in.
Well, when it comes to physical health, it's directly tied to my mental health. So I work out a lot.
Yep.
That's always been about, I was an athlete growing up. I played ball in college. I was at the gym this morning. I'm at the gym 4 or 5 days a week at least. My wife and I, we own, a hot work studio. So I'm a big believer in physical health, and physical health specifically as it relates to mental health, because I know that if I don't go to a gym for a week or two, I don't want to say I get crabby, but I don't feel good.
Right.
And when I don't feel good physically, that affects my mental state, right?
Mm-hmm.
That affects my, I don't want to say mental health, because that,
no, I think it
does.
But it does.
It does, right? Because it just, there is 100% a direct correlation between the two. And the happiest people that I know in retirement, the happiest people that I know, period, take pretty good care of themselves. They're in good shape. And they maintain regular schedules. They kind of maintain a regular schedule. They stay on schedule and they incorporate physical health into their schedule on a daily basis, or at least an almost daily basis, right? That's a huge, huge part of who they are and maybe what their purpose is, right? Because if you believe like me, I only get one trip around this sun, right?
Right. Well, hopefully you get more than one
well,
trip
you know
around
what I'm
the
saying.
sun.
One trip on this earth, right?
There you go.
I misspoke. But you only get one shot at this thing, right? And I would like to make it last as long as I possibly can, and the number one way to do that is to ensure that I'm taking care of, the body that I was given, and treat it with the reverence that I probably should. Not to get too terribly philosophical about it, but yeah, and I have found, especially as I get older, maintaining my physical health keeps me young, keeps me vibrant, keeps me active. So if I want to maintain activities and hobbies,
right,
if I want to maintain my mental health, if I want to fulfill any type of a purpose that I have, all of those things are so much easier to do if I'm taking care of myself first, if I'm taking care of my physical health. Mm-hmm. It's not, and I hear this a lot, they don't have time to work out because they're so focused on their family, they're so focused on everything else.
Make time,
because when I focus on myself first, it helps me to be in a better spot to take care of all the other things that I have to take care of. So we have a business. I work a lot of hours, right? Then I go home. I have kids. They're teenagers now, so they're very involved they're involved in all the stuff, right? And they're going into high school, and they're probably going to be more involved in stuff next year, and the travel sports, and we've done it all. We're still currently doing it all. So if I wasn't maintaining my physical health, the energy that I would have to be able to do all of those things on a regular basis would be directly affected, right? It would be so much harder for me to go pick up my daughter at 9:30 at night, especially now that 9 o'clock at night feels like midnight right now in Kentucky with the time change. But, I'm driving home at, 10 o'clock at night from picking up my daughter from cheerleading, across town. And, if I didn't have my physical health, I'd be falling asleep at the wheel, or I would just be totally somewhere else, and maybe not in a good state to have conversations with my daughter when we're coming home. But I do, and I have energy to be able to do those things because I take care of myself. I know you've incorporated that with your sons a lot, and you've got your sons working out. And, running cross country and lifting weights and doing all those things. And I try to incorporate that with my daughter's a workout freak too, because she's in cheerleading, and so she's always working out.
It's a lot more physical than what a lot of people realize.
If you ever want to mess with the cheerleader, tell them it's not a sport. It's so much fun.
All right, point taken.
I'm not very much saying I'm not saying it's not a sport. I am saying if you ever want to, get a side eye from a cheerleader, tell them it's not a sport.
Or have something thrown at your head, right?
Yeah, it's an easy way to get my daughter a little riled up.
I want to go into something that you just said about the physical part. Because when most people think of physical health, they think of exercise. They think of some form of working out, either with weights or simple cardiovascular health, whatever. But there's more parts to health. And you just mentioned you get good night's sleep. And it made me think sleep and diet are huge parts of maintaining good physical health. I know when I eat well, which for the most part I maintain a fairly reasonable diet, I feel much better. Oh, yeah. Right? I monitor my sleep very, very carefully. I've got so many injuries, I can't exercise the way that I want to. So I have to work harder on those other things to maintain that.
We're recording this 2 days before Thanksgiving, by the way.
Right.
So everything that you're saying in 2 days, I'm going to completely ignore.
But you're going to throw it out the window for a day.
Yeah.
Right? And that's another good one. We've discussed vacationing. My wife and I love to go on cruises. If you've ever been on a cruise, and you're going to find out next year, it is all about the food, the sheer volume of food, good food, rich food. You can, if you don't maintain your body correctly, then when you do go and splurge, like on Thanksgiving or like on vacations, you're miserable when you get done, and that goes back into that physical health part of it. When you feel good, everything else is a little bit easier, right? Just because being in pain or being uncomfortable is not fun. Nobody's ever described that as desirable, right?
Yeah, it's interesting, too, because I will meet with clients that are 85 years old. I'm thinking of one client in particular. She's 82, 83, early 80s. I don't remember the exact age, but she's 82, 83, I think. I schedule my appointments around her pickleball games and her lunches with her girlfriends. She's very, very active, and you meet her, you would have no clue that she was in her early 80s because she has always been very, very active. She's a widower, by the way, so she's doing all of this without a spouse.
Good for her.
But she's awesome. She's wonderful, wonderful to talk to. Stays on top of everything. She reads a ton. She's actually, she actually keeps an own portfolio for herself, so she kind of stays on top of stock market and stuff like that. So she's actually pretty fun to talk shop with. But
sounds to me like she's doing a lot of these things that we've been sitting.
No, she 100%. She 100% is. But you meet with her, but then you'll also meet with someone who's maybe 10 years younger, who's not doing some of those things. And it's almost like the person who's 10 years younger looks significantly older. And not to say that they're not good people or anything like that, right? But it's so encouraging. It's so wonderful to see someone at her age to be taking such good care of herself and has been taking good care of herself for so long that she is in a position not only to live a longer life, but to get more life out of life because she's able to do more things. She's not slowing down in her 80s. Right. She is still doing so many things, and it's wonderful to see. I love meeting with her. She's very vibrant and fun, and she's not the only one. I'm just thinking of her in particular right now, and we've got plenty of other clients that are like that. But she's awesome, and it's fun to see people doing so well, farther into their lives.
And it sounds to me like she's enjoying her life.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which kind of leads me into the sixth thing that's on this list. And like I said, we don't know that whether there were more on this list. This is just the six they gave us. Now we hit money.
Finally.
So, yeah. And it comes back to, after the conversation we've been having, and this is just on one part of this survey that we're looking at, money being listed sixth of the six things that we gave us. What is the purpose of money? It's to give you the ability to do the things that we've already talked about that are not free. Now, I could argue that a lot of the stuff on this list is free. Getting up and going for a walk does not cost you money, right? Traveling, on the other hand, can be very expensive depending on what you want to do. social connections. Okay, if you're going to go out with friends, you have to pay for food or drinks or the activity you're doing. But you know what? Money, I could show where money physically supports every single one of these, but it is not the happiness unto itself. There is no dollar amount that you will ever achieve in your investment accounts or in your bank or whatever that is going to make you happy. It is what allows you to do some of the other things that do actually, bring you joy, that make you enjoy your life.
I had a conversation with a client, and we've all got stories like this,
Sure.
but to kind of drive that point home, they did an extensive, what started off as kind of a master bath kitchen renovation turned into basically a renovation of their entire first floor. And it was a very, very extensive renovation of their home. They had kind of finally decided, you know what, we'll stay put, but we're going to make this more of our forever home instead of moving. They were having trouble figuring out where they were going to move if they even wanted to, and they finally decided to stay put and just renovate. They spent a significant amount of money on this renovation. Okay. In the multiple, it was in the six figures. And as you would probably expect with any home renovations these days, that stuff has gotten so expensive.
No kidding.
But they spent a really good chunk of money, and they're actually pre-retired. They haven't even retired yet. They're close. But they were, they were in the office after all the renovations were complete, and we were kind of going through, tell me about it. Everything's done. Show me pictures. How do you like it? How much happier are you? And then we kind of got to the money, and they're like, yeah, it ended up being X amount of money that we spent, and it was, definitely more money than we were expecting, and are we going to be okay? And because then they want to go, are we still going to be okay? Are we still on track? And this is where it's like, okay, yeah, we've talked about this before, but now that it's done, let's review. Pull up all of their accounts, go through the plan. 100%, you're still on track. Nothing has affected your probability of success as far as running out of money is concerned. You still have more than enough money to hit all of your goals in retirement after you've completed all of these renovations, after you've spent all of this money. And so I mean, to really drive it home with these clients, I asked them, I said, just a quick question. Now that we've gone through all of this, how would you feel if your total net worth was whatever that amount of money that they spent? I said, if it was $150,000, $200,000 more today, would that change your life at all?
No. I know that answer. Yeah.
It's the number's a little bit higher on the spreadsheet, right? The number's a little bit higher on the balance sheet, but it doesn't change your life. Your lifestyle is exactly the same, except now you get to go home to a beautiful home that you love significantly more than you did because you've invested some time and some money into fixing it up and making it yours and making it your forever home. So now you get to go home every day and live a life that the money that you had saved was able to afford you, right? Because you had done all of the things leading up to, the time that you wanted to spend the money on yourselves a little bit. You get to enjoy the fruits of your labor, right? We talk about the purpose of money all the time. The purpose of money isn't to have a lot of money. The purpose of money is to go spend the money on the things that bring you joy, the things that bring you happiness, the things that give you purpose, right? And we talk so much about the purpose of money, and we're going to be talking a lot more about the purpose of money here in a couple months on this podcast specifically. Foreshadowing, a little bit of foreshadowing
Just
there, right?
Bit, yeah.
But all that to say, money is important. Yes, I never want to say that it's not important, but it really, the key word is enough. And this leads into kind of what they found to be the top 3 most important retirement priorities. Okay, number 1 was good physical health. We talked about physical health already.
I find it interesting that was the number 1 priority that people came up with. I wouldn't have called that.
And you can't enjoy any of your money if you're not around to spend it.
Right.
Number 3 was good mental health. Yep. We've talked about that. But number 2 was having enough money to enjoy retirement. There's one key word that I want to zoom in on, right?
Going. Go for it.
Enough.
Bingo.
It is enough. Because there is no proper way to define the term enough as it relates to money in retirement. If you have $2 million, is that enough? Is 2.3 really going to make you that much more happy?
Right.
It's interesting because we've been in this business long enough, and it is what it is, right? We deal with a lot of folks with a lot of money. the ones with, let's say, 5 million aren't necessarily any happier than the ones with 1 million.
Nope.
Right? We meet with a lot of clients in between. I can tell you for a fact the happiness factor does not change any one way, shape, or form, depending upon, whatever that term enough, whatever that number is. Once you get above that number, your happiness doesn't change.
Right.
Your lifestyle does not change. As long as you know.
Tax situation might.
Yeah, tax situation, the estate plan, right? All the things that we do, right? But from a happiness perspective,
no impact.
There's no impact. There's really no impact. Once you kind of know and you feel secure in the fact that you have enough money to enjoy your life and live out the purpose, that you feel that God has called you to do, you're fine. Your happiness doesn't increase in any way, shape, or form by having a few extra bucks in your account.
Yep. One of the things that I hear from people a lot, especially when they're newer clients, when they haven't truly, embraced how the planning works. I hear some variation of, so how am I doing compared to everybody else? Right? Mm-hmm. Who cares? Because you're not everybody else. Mm-hmm. Recently I've started working with a couple that they are about to retire beginning of next year. I can tell you that the amount of money that they have is not over $1 million. It's considerably under that. But the amount of money that they have to work with easily, with room to spare, pays for the lifestyle that they want, because they want a fairly simple lifestyle. That's what makes them happy. Mm-hmm. That amount of money would be completely insufficient for somebody who wants to be a world traveler. I used to joke about, and I would use this as an absurd example in order to prove a point, somebody who says that they're going to go east until they get back. I can't use that anymore because we actually had a client come in and was planning on doing that. Mm-hmm. He was headed out for Morocco the next week or something like that. Yep. Those are two totally different sets of hopes and dreams and plans and things that they enjoy doing. So the concept of, that extra dollar, does it do anything? Well, it depends. What do you want to accomplish? If, to use your example, if the $2 million that you have accomplishes all of those hopes and dreams, right, with margin to spare, does an extra $300,000 change that? No, it doesn't. So why are you killing yourself to do it, right? The one caveat I would say, and we've talked about, the purpose of money is to spend it on the things that bring you joy and happiness. The one caution I would have would be for the younger people. So the millennial generation and even the Gen Zs, enough of them are out there now, they're really into experiences.
I know where you're going, and we probably need to dedicate a whole episode to
this.
We
probably should. But so I'll keep this one brief. We are not talking about going out and spending all of your money on experiences now while you're young and you can enjoy it. If you do the things that we were talking about, you maintain your physical and mental health, and you do some proper saving, you'll get to do all of those things when you retire, and you won't have any other things that you're battling against, like, having to go to work. You should be doing some of those things early, but let's take a little bit of a, for lack of a better phrase, a Dave Ramsey approach to let's live a little bit smaller now so that we can live bigger later. You can do both. Just be very cautious with that. You're right. We probably should do a whole episode on that.
We just set ourselves up, yes. So we probably need to. But one more thing on this happiness index chart here. It goes into whose happiness, and there's a few examples that they had based upon the study that they did. So retirees versus pre-retirees. From a score of 70 to 66, retirees pretty much across the board were happier than pre-retirees. Right. I have my thoughts on that. I think probably specifically it's because pre-retirees, there's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of emotion prior to retirement, kind of the anxiety of, do I have enough? Should I retire? Am I ready to retire? I'm going to completely change my lifestyle. I might lose some work friends or what have you, right? All of the anxiety that occurs right before retirement. I think that's probably leading to, not that pre-retirees are necessarily unhappy, but they're not as happy as retirees.
Add to that, 100% correct. Add to that the people who have been working in the same job for 25, 30, 35 years, and they're just simply tired of it. They are ready for the next adventure. I think that is clearly why those types of things, retirees are going to be happier than pre-retirees. But those scores are not radically different.
No.
We're not jumping, huge sums to go that. You can be a very happy pre-retiree. If you're budgeting correctly, you can do both.
Now, where there is a dramatically different score is on those that have an advisor versus those that do not.
I'm so glad that you're tooting our own horns instead of me.
And we talk about this a lot, right?
Yeah.
Those that have an advisor, that have gone through the planning process, that have an inherent understanding of what they have, the type of lifestyle that they live, and how they're going to generate their income for the rest of their life. They are significantly happier across the board in every study that we've ever seen before. But this is, once again, another data point to encourage that or to enforce that, right? Those that have advisors just sleep better at night. They have a much greater peace of mind because they're not trying to do it themselves. They know that they have someone that's gone through their plan with them. They understand their plan, right? And it's been stress tested and all those different things. If you don't have that, if you have not completed that planning, if you don't have that plan done, you are never going to feel as comfortable on a day-to-day basis as someone who has gone through that process. Right. You won't, because you're either trying to do it yourself. Most people are not equipped to do it themselves.
Right.
I'm not equipped to do pretty much any other job on this earth, right? Because
you
I
don't
haven't
see me going out and doing surgery.
I haven't
I'm
trained.
not going to do that.
I haven't trained and spent my entire working career in another industry. Right. If I spent my entire working career as a plumber, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing, and I would not be equipped to do what I do. Same thing applies here, right? So I think that's one of the biggest, actually, from a discrepancy standpoint, that is actually the biggest discrepancy between, those that are happy and those that are less, I don't want to say unhappy, but less happy, right? There's a much bigger, from a risk perspective, from an index perspective, happiness index perspective, a big difference between those that have an advisor and those that don't.
Well, and I would expand on that a little bit. There were two things that popped into my mind about why the person with an advisor is happier. And you really addressed one of them in that it helps alleviate the anxiety. This is not what I have done for a living my whole life, right? The person or the team that I'm dealing with, this is what they do for a living. So it kind of takes that anxiety off the table. But to go back to the do-it-yourselfer, okay, so let's just say that you could do it by yourself. It still takes time. You're still having to worry about going through dealing with your financial plan. And that's an ongoing thing. It's, you don't just turn it on and let it go. It's a constant job to work that. If you've got an advisor doing that for you, you know what you're doing at that time? Whatever you want to do.
Life.
Right, life. You're enjoying. You're having fun. You're doing what you've been saving for all these years. So why not just go enjoy it instead of doing all that?
Yeah, and when you're not focused on those things, when you know that you have a plan and you know that you feel like you're going to be successful in retirement, that's going to affect your mental health. It's going to affect your purpose because you can kind of help define a purpose or maybe carve out a bigger purpose in your life as opposed to focusing on these things. It's going to help you feel like you have the money to go spend on activities and hobbies and traveling and finding social connections and focusing more on your physical health. And it's going to affect your mental health, obviously, because you're not worried about this stuff. You're not losing sleep over, oh my gosh, we just had a market crash, over what some people thought was a market crash. It's already pretty much corrected itself at this point over the last several weeks. November started off pretty poorly, but you know what? Now it's coming back. And I had that conversation.
It's normal.
Yeah, had that conversation with a number of clients. The world's not ending. The AI bubble is not bursting quite yet. But anyway, that's another topic. But it just allows you to drive your focus on the things that are far more important than money. And according to this index, money is not the most important thing. We talk about that all the time. It is important, but it's not the most important thing. And so if you've got the stuff around the money taken care of, it allows you to focus on the things that are far more important.
That actually bring you that happiness that you're looking for. Okay, there's a couple other things on here I want to address, but I thought this might be a good time because I see an empty glass over there on the other side of this bottle.
Yeah, you do.
Let's revisit Mary Dowling. You were more critical last time than I was. Both of us had some issues. And I think the primary issue was not the flavors and all that. We did think it was trying to do too much. But the problem was the price point. And I'm going from memory. I want to say that bottle was like $125 or something like that. It was not cheap.
What was this?
Well, why don't you tell me what you think first, and then I'll tell you how much this one is. I was kind of waiting on that one. So
It's probably an $80, $90 bottle.
it is not an $80, $90 bottle. It's less.
Okay, yeah.
So knowing that it's less than $80, what did you think about the flavor of it?
So it's funny because the one that we tried previously was definitely more expensive.
Yep.
I will take this one every day of the week.
Absolutely. This is a considerably better bourbon.
This is good.
Yep. It's
I like
flavorful. It's not overwhelming.
It's definitely not overwhelming. It's almost you use the word hot a lot when we talk about,
And
when
I'm
we deal through these
referring
tastings.
to that spicy or that proof note.
This is almost cold.
Yeah.
It's definitely very different than pretty much every other bourbon I think I've ever had. But it's almost cold, like it's almost been chilled, but it's not been chilled because I know you just came from the store with us.
Right. Yeah, I went out and bought it before we did this.
So it's not that cold outside in your car for whatever amount of time that it was sitting in the car. It almost tastes chilled. Like there's a cool flavor to it. I don't guess that's the winter wheat. Hell, I don't know what winter wheat is.
I'm assuming that's correct. That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, but there's a lot of flavor to it, but it goes down. This is also a dangerous one because it goes down easy.
Yes.
I could easily pour myself another one right now, and
Well, I think part of that is this is only 91 proof.
yes,
So it doesn't have that alcohol bite of the higher proof ones. I don't remember what the other Mary Dowling was, but it was not light. It was not a lightweight.
yeah.
This is. There are no flavors in this that are overwhelming to me. I get all of the traditional stuff that I would expect in bourbon. There's some other subtle things out there, but not a lot of them. It's not complex. It's just very pleasant. It's light on the palate. This is extremely dangerous because, without question, just
It is
full
definitely
disclosure, we are recording this right before we leave on Thanksgiving break. I'm very seriously thinking about having another one of these before we go home because it's that good.
I'm a fan of this one significantly more than the other one. And if you had told me that before we tasted both, because the other one was toasted double oak,
Right.
I forgot the other.
Toasted, double oaked, wheated, high, barrel strength or something along
I would
those
have
lines.
guessed 9 times out of 10 I would have preferred the other one, but I like this one a lot
Correct.
better,
By the way, this was $59.99.
which makes me like it a lot more.
Yeah, and you know what? I've seen it in the big box stores. Pretty much any time I've just wandered through, seeing if there's anything that I can't live without. And I've been wanting to pull the trigger on picking this one up. I just never did. The store where I picked this up was not what most people would call a big box, but it is a bigger local liquor store that most people in this area would know where it is.
What, the Liquor Barn?
No, that's a big box. I picked it up at Evergreen.
Okay, yeah.
But to your point, this is easy. It's not that expensive. This is what some people might call their daily drinker. If you're drinking every day, that's a different problem, and we're going to talk about mental illness and physical health on that one. But the phrase people understand when you're I just want to have a pour of bourbon and I don't want to think about it. That one would be a really good one to turn to. Very, very pleasant. Well done.
Yeah, this is definitely a good one. I like this one a lot.
I will say that when I was cutting it, because it's only 91 proof, I was very careful to put one drop at a time in it.
Yeah, I didn't put anything more than that.
I noticed no difference in the taste.
It's
at all.
funny.
It's
funny you say that because I didn't really notice much of a difference at all either. Now, granted, I didn't water it down too much.
We didn't pour a lot in there, but I wouldn't do that anyway with a low proof. So, this is a good bourbon. The Mary Dowling, this is the winter wheat. So I would not hesitate to buy this one again.
Winter wheat purple label. I like it. Big
All
fan.
right. So let's go over a couple more things to wrap this up. One of the things that we did notice, and we thought that this might be a big difference between the Australian population and the American population, was the number of people that were interested in guaranteed income. So the guaranteed income portion, there's a lot of forms of guaranteed income. Most people in the United States would think about Social Security, right? And then some people who are listening to this would go, well, that's not guaranteed because the government's going to change it. That's a political discussion. It is a form of guaranteed income.
Sure.
your pensions at work are the biggest one. Now, pensions, the traditional pension is not anywhere close to as prevalent as what it was 50 years ago. You know, we've joked about people work for a company once upon a time. They work there for 30 years. They get a going away party. They get a gold watch, and they get a paycheck every month for as long as they live. That's the traditional pension. They're extremely hard to manage. They're very, very expensive. Unfortunately for those systems, people just started living too long. Mm-hmm. They're doing these other things that we talked about.
Same
obviously,
thing,
medical science.
Same thing with Social Security.
Exactly. People are living longer than what these systems were designed to last. Mm-hmm. So we've moved over more to the defined benefit, or excuse me, the defined contribution plan. Most people know as a 401k. There is some value to having guaranteed income. I would argue if you are not incorporating some form of guaranteed income into your retirement plan, you do not have the most efficient plan. One of the big ones, and this is a really touchy subject when you get to different types of advisors that are out there, is using annuities as a form of guaranteed income, what we would call an income annuity. There's pros and cons. I've heard the phrase mailbox money. I hate that phrase, but everybody knows exactly what it means. Your money just shows up. And there's another one that I was taught early in my career. Government employees, when they are retired, tend to be the happiest employees. And the concept behind that was that's where you still have a very high percentage of those people have pensions when they retire.
Notice they're not that happy when they're still working.
Correct. So they had to be miserable for 20, 30 years,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
The point here, I'm not saying that you should have a pension. I'm not saying that you should have an annuity. I'm saying that some form of guaranteed income as part of the income plan is a healthy thing because it gives you a little bit more confidence in that I'm not going to run out. It does not matter what the markets do with my money. I'm not going to run out. I think the problem here is there are too many advisors out there who will say, well, not a problem. We'll just set it up where we'll buy an income annuity and every penny that you want to show up in your bank every month just comes from that annuity. And that's an incredibly inefficient way of doing it. Mm-hmm. And there's so many better ways to do it than that. Obviously, we believe we have a better way.
Much better way, yes.
It is interesting the way that one came out. It was, what was the statistic here? The demand for guaranteed income in Australia of pre-retirees, 85% of Australians wanted some form of guaranteed income. I would say that Americans probably have a slightly different mindset than Australians, so we probably are not as high.
Well, we have a different economy. We have a different tolerance for risk.
Right.
Europeans, you're not going to find that number.
No way. Not a chance.
I mean, Europeans demand guaranteed income for life.
They want a guarantee.
That's just right. Their entire culture is set up completely differently than the way that our economy is structured. Which also kind of leads to the fact that...
Yeah, it leads into these other ones here, right?
Yeah, so, and really probably the last one we need to talk about is this fear of running out of money. 2 out of 5 Australians, that was their biggest fear, was running out of money. Which, that number would be much higher.
I agree. Yeah.
In America, that is the number one fear that retirees have, is running out of money. That's
Without
the
question.
number one problem that we have to solve for, or the number one concern, I should say, that we have to solve for. I don't know enough about the pension system or the Social Security system or the healthcare system in Australia. I'm going to go out on a pretty short limb here and guess that it's quite a bit more socialist than what we have here in America.
I think so.
Not to say that America's not trending that way, but that's another story.
That's another podcast.
Yeah, that's
right?
another podcast. As just got my healthcare renewals for 2026. Right. That would be a fun little podcast to do right now. Talk about the state of healthcare in our country right now, but at least the cost of it. But I think there's a much greater fear of running out of money in America specifically because we don't have the social structure, the government structure in place to support retirees, at least not to the same degree that Australia and maybe some other countries in Europe and Asia have. Now, that's probably why we have a much greater economy, right? And
I
our
would
taxes
agree.
are
That's
our taxes
exactly
are
why,
considerably lower, right? But it's interesting to note that that's not nearly as big of a concern over there as what I see here in America.
Yep, I would agree with that. And that's the reason I brought up that example that I was taught when I first got in the business, that government employees, when they are retired, tend to be happier because they have those pensions. I suspect that that's probably why that number is only 2 out of 5. I think it's probably much higher here, 4 out of 5 maybe.
Yeah, for sure.
But once again, if you have a good plan, that's not as big of an issue because you know how the money is going to show up, right? That's the whole point. Last thing that's on here, and we'll address this, is cost of living pressures. I think this one is clearly a universal. It says here that 72% say that cost of living had an impact on their confidence in their financial security. And 34% said that it had a significant impact. You know what? That's been all over the news lately, is the affordability of living in the United States.
There's some inflation data that came out this morning, as a matter of fact.
Okay, I had not seen that. But yeah, things have been getting more and more expensive. Well, okay, so a couple of things here. Inflation doesn't go down, meaning prices go back to where they were 5 years ago. It doesn't work that way. We had a long run through the 2000s and especially through the 2010s of well below average inflation. You know, we were averaging 1.5, whereas the historical averages are closer to, it's between 2.5 and 3. And we are paying the piper for that now. And okay, you know, you and I would both argue that government policies is what really stimulated this big rise in inflation. So now the inflation numbers are getting back down closer to historical average.
To be clear, it is always what drives inflation.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
Continue.
We're now getting those inflation numbers back down to what they historically would be. But that doesn't mean that the price of things comes back down. So now we've got a period of time where the way that we go about paying for things, the amount of money that we make, our wages, salaries, things of that nature, just take a little time to catch up with that. Well, the problem is when you're already retired, you can't work extra hours and make more money. Mm-hmm. You can't get a promotion at work. You can't do a second job. And that's the biggest issue with pensions. And people are totally unaware of this in most cases when I talk to them. When you take that pension, you get X number of dollars and you say, oh, here's my financial plan. That X number of dollars will pay for this. But the pension does not go up with inflation, right? That's where the concern is. People that have been in retirement for 10, 12 years, they're starting to realize that their income is not going up, but their expenses are. And that's where these kind of stressors come in. What did you hear about the inflation numbers this morning? I'm sorry, I hadn't heard that at all.
It was like 2.6, 2.7.
Okay. I know I did see
Which is
Social
pretty much right on point.
Social Security next year is going up 2.8. That's the cost of living adjustment for 2026. So for those of you that did not know that, it was 2.5 last year, which is, I believe that is the historical average, is right at 2.5.
It's right around there,
something like that. So anyway, just very, very interesting when you see a group of people in another similar country do these kind of surveys and try to model out. We find pretty much the same thing that we see here, in that money is not the number one concern.
Human nature is universal. Pretty good place to wrap up.
Let's wrap that up.
I would say. Great bourbon. Far more enjoyable than the last Mary Dowling that we tried. But with that being said, if you have any of these concerns as it relates to your retirement plan, if you have any questions around how well prepared you are for retirement, how well prepared you are to live in retirement, and finding a purpose and finding activities and hobbies and social connections and focusing on your physical health and mental health and all these different things that go into driving your happiness score as it relates to the success of your retirement. We would love to chat with you about all of those things. You can go to the show notes, find our website, fwppartners.com, give us a call, or you can go to our website and schedule a call at any given time. We would love to chat with you further. Thanks for joining us. Until next time.